Experience the holy mountain of the Sauerland, a neat small town in rural Germany, and a visit to a pub with one of the most famous landlords in the area in another Walks and Pubs excursion. We are leaving southern England for Germany today and are going to North Rhine-Westphalia, one of Germany's 16 states. Whilst outside observers might tend to describe it as being in the northwest of Germany, many people in the state and its largest broadcaster insist that it is in the west, and in the west only. Anyway, as the name suggests, North Rhine-Westphalia has two main regions and even a third smaller one. We are going to the part that isn't North Rhine, but Westphalia. The region has several larger cities in its north, but the south is a more rural area. Here we'll find the Sauerland, an area with hills and mountains up to 2,767 feet high. It's famous for being a destination for winter sports, and more importantly for me, it has many long and short distance footpaths and hiking trails. Let's go to the town of Schmallenberg and see what we'll find. You might already have guessed that I'm no stranger to the area. I grew up here and asked 3 friends of mine to join me on my walk. We are starting our journey to Mount Wilzenberg on the northern fringe of Schmallenberg near the school complex. The weather is cloudy with occasional rain, but it's not cold. The mist on top of the mountain will create an enchanted atmosphere. We started at Obringhauser Straße and are gonna pass through the Schmallenberg school complex next. My mates' names are Raphael, Dominic and Daniel, who's also my brother and quite a bit younger than the rest of us. As the older ones of us all look incredibly young for our age, I bet you won't be able to tell who's the youngest. Yay! That was easier to spot than I thought. What a thrilling contest! The school complex is located next to a residential area we also need to walk through. A 77-mile long-distance cycling route crosses this neighborhood. I could easily manage that distance with a bike like this. We are now at the eastern end of Schmallenberg. After crossing this roundabout, we'll walk through an industrial estate and then head into the countryside to make our way up to the Wilzenberg. But first it's time for a break. I need to see if the German beer still tastes as good as it used to. It's the day of the 2024 UEFA Champions League final and Borussia Dortmund will face Real Madrid. Dominic, Daniel and I are Dortmund supporters, and unlike you people from the future, we don't know about the result yet.
It's better that way.
We're planning to watch the game once we've arrived at the pub. Cheers! As we pass through the industrial estate, we are crossing a bridge over the river Lenne. It has its source in Schmallenberg's neighboring town of Winterberg. On its way down the mountains, it has grown in size significantly. This 80-mile-long tributary of the river Ruhr flows through 7 other Sauerland towns and municipalities before reaching its mouth in the city of Hagen. It started to rain slightly as we are reaching the end of the built-up area. To get to the Wilzenberg, we'll first have to climb up a hill named Ahrberg. This has been an incline of about 260 feet. My face has turned red, and we won't need our jackets for a while. The Ahrberg merges into the Wilzenberg, which is our next but more moderate climb. It's time for another break. Rather surprisingly, our friend Lars and his dog have turned up at the mountain car park. Because of a string of miscommunication, Lars had waited for us at the car park earlier, and when we didn't show up, he went up the mountain on his own. Nevertheless, he and his dog followed us for a while before returning to the car park. Sorry, Lars. On the wayside there's a small shrine, housing a figure of Jesus, erected in 1843 by a sculptor and Schmallenberg local hero nicknamed Floigen Kaspar, This gives us the first clue that the Wilzenberg is no ordinary mountain. Known as the Holy Mountain of the Sauerland, it's a Christian pilgrimage site and hosts annual processions. There's an old chapel, a large summit cross, and an observation tower on top of the mountain. We are taking a look at these in a few moments. The misty atmosphere up here almost seems a little spooky, but it also creates a special mysterious feeling. We've made it to the top of Mount Wilzenberg. And one of the first things we see is the Chapel of St. Mary, built in 1633 in the middle of the 30 Years' War. Before that, another chapel stood at this place, which was mentioned in 1543. In 1773 and 1914, the building was remodeled and expanded. This is the 14th and final station of the Way of the Cross. The pilgrimage route, also built in 1773, runs around the top of the mountain, and the 3 crosses behind the open-air altar next to the chapel form its 12th station. Long before the buildings we see today existed, a hill fort stood atop the mountain during the early Middle Ages. According to legend, a countess named Kunitsa once lived there. She was said to have murdered her 7 husbands, one after another, supposedly by poisoning. To atone for her crimes, she donated all her property to Grafschaft Abbey in the valley below. There seems to be some truth, at least in this last part of the story, as this donation can be historically traced back, but to a count and not a countess of the Wilzenberg. Grafschaft Abbey was founded in 1072 and it still exists today. It's surrounded by the village of Grafschaft at the foot of the mountain, with a population of about 1,100. As the name Grafschaft means county, I'm wondering if the counts of the Wilzenberg had something to do with it. The abbey was responsible for the foundation of the town of Schmallenberg in 1244, where we'll return at the end of our walk. But first we are going to see the observation tower. About 50 yards from the altar stands the 92 feet tall summit cross. It is now a steel construction erected in 2015 as a replacement for the old wooden cross of 1972, and a large cross has stood at this spot since 1626. Whilst the medieval hill fort covered the area around today's observation tower, which we'll see in a few seconds, an earlier and even larger hill fort existed as far back as the Iron Age. It consisted of 2 defensive walls and enclosed the entire mountaintop. During construction works in 1950, a cache of weapons deliberately rendered unusable was unearthed here. These were dated to the late 1st century AD and are now displayed at the Westphalian State Museum for Archaeology and Culture in Herne. Unfortunately, more comprehensive archaeological investigations haven't happened yet, and many details remain in the dark. Here we are at the Wilzenberg Observation Tower, which stands near the highest point of the mountain of 2,159 feet. The tower was built in 1889, the same year as the Eiffel Tower, and I dare say it's at least as famous. Let's go up and see how far our view will be in this weather. The Wilzenberg Tower was originally 33 feet high, but on its centenary in 1989 an additional platform was added, so we're now standing at 56 feet. As expected, the view today isn't great, and all we can see is the treetops. Luckily, I found some photos in my archive, from when I went up here years ago with my friend Benny, who we'll meet in the evening. After we climbed down the tower, we had an unexpected visitor. Then we went on our way back. Just a few yards from the observation tower, the footpath leads us through an area where the remnants of the old circular rampart can clearly be seen. Imagine what it must have been like walking through the gates of the ancient hill fort. And down we go to the mountain car park where Jasmine waits. She'll join us on the rest of our walk down to Schmallenberg and the pub. Back at the Ahrberg we are passing the Fraunhofer Institute for Molecular Biology and Applied Ecology, which we already saw on our way up. Now we're heading to the lower town of Schmallenberg. We can already see a part of it in the distance. Here we are back in Schmallenberg, which is located in the High Sauerland district. Down at the foot of the Aarberg, we need to cross the Sparpark in order to get to the old town. Once again, a bridge leads us over the Lenne, which has kept flowing steadily to the southwest while we were on our walk.
Where have you been, my friend?
I'm not sure if the Lenne talks this way, but it is possible. At the western end of the Sparpark we can already see Schmallenberg's old town with its prominent church tower and half-timbered and slate-clad houses. Off we go for a final ascent, first along a path that once ran along the exterior base of the former town wall, and then on a section that would have been on top of it. Here in the old town of Schmallenberg we are now on the final steps of our walk. And what comes after a walk on this channel? Guessed it! Our final destination is Gasthof Mönig, or the Mönig Inn, also known as Schacker among the locals. And we're entering like proper rock stars, through the back door. A welcoming committee consisting of Benny, his girlfriend Sandra, and the landlord himself is already waiting for us. What a nice reception! This is also the place where we are meeting with other friends to watch tonight's football game. The front room isn't busy yet, but that'll change later. The landlord's actual name is Joseph, but everyone only calls him Schacker, a nickname his father already had, though nobody recalls where it came from. He's a big fan of blues music and renowned for his unique humor.
Horrible, no people in the bar!
Yeah, that's right. Can only get better, but it's busy down here. The final took place at Wembley, and, as you might have heard, it dragged on for a while, and Dortmund lost 0-2. Afterwards we moved on to the front area of the pub and had an amazing rest of the evening nevertheless. We are now going to take a look at today's walking route. Keep watching as I show you more of Schmallenberg's old town and its sights afterwards, and explain why the Schmallenberg residents have a strange nickname which even many native German speakers won't understand. Our walk started at Obringhauser Straße in the upper town of Schmallenberg, near the school complex. We passed through the complex and after walking past the football pitch on our left, reached a residential area which we also passed through. At the end of the neighborhood we crossed a roundabout on the B236 road. On the other side there's an industrial estate. After a few yards we crossed a bridge over the river Lenne. Then we made our way towards the Aarberg. By UK standards this would be considered a hill, but Berg means mountain, so it's basically called the A mountain. Decide for yourself. The path from the foot of the Aarberg to the Fraunhofer Institute at its top was the steepest stretch of our journey. From there we went up the Wilzenberg, with our first stop being the mountain car park where we met Lars. Behind the barrier gate the tarred road gradually took us up the mountain. When it turned to gravel, we turned left and continued walking until we arrived at St. Mary's Chapel at the mountain top. We explored the old buildings here and continued past the summit cross, eventually arriving at the Wilzenberg observation tower. After climbing the tower we began our descent and saw the remnants of the ancient circular rampart before returning to the road we'd come from. We returned to the Wilzenberg car park and headed back to the Aarberg. Back at the Fraunhofer Institute we went straight on to get to Schmallenberg's lower town. After passing a farm and a cemetery, we arrived at the Sparpark. We took a stroll through the park before following a path that once ran along the base of the town wall, eventually taking us to the old town. From there it took us just a few minutes to arrive at our final destination, Schackars Gasthof Möhnich. This walk was 5.9 miles long. Let's now take a short stroll through the center of Schmallenberg. Schmallenberg is twinned with the West Sussex town of Burgess Hill in southeast England, which is noted by the Burgess Hill Square, with adjacent shops and stores. It's a 45-mile drive from Burgess Hill to the centre of London, and 100 miles to Bournemouth in southwest England, where I'm based. This is the Wood and Tourism Centre, which normally houses the Tourist Information Desk. Unfortunately, it's covered behind scaffolding today. Luckily, I've got an archive photo showing how it looked before. 600 yards from there stands a viewpoint in the shape of a ship. I'm climbing up here to get to enjoy this better view. Land ahoy! Schmallenberg has a population of 6,200 and has enjoyed its status as a town for 780 years. However, in 1975 the town's territory was significantly expanded to include not just the original town we see here, but also the former town of Fredeburg, today's Bad Fredeburg, the Liberty of Bödefeld, and 81 villages and hamlets. These settlements have populations ranging from just 2 people to about 4,000, bringing the official population of the entire town of Schmallenberg, with all its settlements, to 25,300. This expansion made the town of Schmallenberg the second largest of all cities and towns in Westphalia by area. Only the city of Münster is slightly larger in territory, though it has a far bigger population of 323,000. I'm getting seasick. Let's get off here. This is the Stadthalle, which literally translates to town hall. Since that has a different meaning in English, I'll refer to it as the town event hall. Events like the annual Schützenfest or Marksmen's Festival take place here. And here's the Schützenplatz, or Marksmen's Square, named after the people who host the Schützenfest, a traditional folk and beer festival featuring parades, a fun fair and shooting competitions. We are walking down Weststraße, where we'll take a break before continuing to St. Alexander's Church in the center of the old town. The church, built in the 13th century and expanded in 1905-06, had its tower rebuilt and consecrated in 2004. Let's meet Breiberg, sitting at his table not far from the church and opposite the town hall. He's something like a personification of Schmallenberg, as people from surrounding areas sometimes cheekily refer to Schmallenberg residents as Breibelge. The word Brei, with Y in the name of the bronze sculpture, uses an old spelling for Brei with I, meaning porridge. Pop. Balk is the local dialect word for belly. Pop. So why are Schmallenberg locals named porridge bellies? Pop, pop. Okay. This dates back to the Great Fire of 1822, which destroyed most of the town, and didn't only leave most of its residents without a home, but also without food supplies, which had also burned to ashes. To survive, people had to live off the meager food sources that were still available, primarily donations of millet, rye and oats from neighboring settlements. These were turned into porridge. Due to this one-sided diet and resulting malnutrition, Schmallenberg residents allegedly developed so-called porridge bellies, and this nickname has stuck ever since. Here's the town hall. You might wonder what the people working here have done to deserve being in a building called a Rathaus, but the word Rat in Rathaus actually means council. So any German town hall is literally called Councilshaus, as it's the seat of the town council. Behind the town hall is Schmalen House, one of the few buildings that survived the 1822 conflagration. Built on the remains of one of the old town wall's towers, it now houses the town archive. A few steps further we come to the chapel on the Werd, built in 1682, and the War Memorial. After that we're heading back north along Oststraße, passing the church again and concluding this little sightseeing tour at a familiar spot. There's much more to see and do in and around Schmallenberg, with plenty of stories to tell, and if you're thinking of visiting, there are airports and rail stations, both nearby and a little further afield. But for now we're wrapping it up here. I hope you've enjoyed this journey. Take care and hopefully see you soon. Cheers!